Hey guys, it's Blitzkrieg back with more Genshin Impact. Just as a side note, I'm sorry that the mic quality hasn't been that great in the past few videos, but I really appreciate those who stuck through and supported me in trying to give you guys the best tips and guides. Now I got myself a better mic so I can make better videos for you guys, starting with this one where I'll be helping you guys prepare for AR40. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about what happens in AR40. 1. More difficulty spike. 2. Some highest tier domains are finally open. And 3. Resource scarcity. So then how do we deal with all of that? The answer is actually very simple. 1. Proper team building. 2. Proper resource management. Okay, but so how do we build our team and how to manage our resources wisely, right? First, let's get into team building. The key points are very straightforward. Number 1, build around 2 DPS carries. Number 2, focus on elemental diversity. And number 3, spend excess resources to slowly build sub carries. If you're new to the game and you know nothing about Spiral Abyss, it's basically the endgame content. And the thing about Spiral Abyss is they're gonna force you to have 2 teams. That's the reason why we're only focusing on 2 teams first. Just a quick side note, I made a recent video recommending you guys to get Bennett from the Starglader shop, but if you guys didn't know it yet, Bennett is also a healer and can do a better job of healing than Noelle. So because of the nature of the Spiral Abyss, if you guys still don't have a second healer other than Barbara, I'm highly recommending you guys get Bennett. Anyway, moving on to elemental diversity. This also ties into the Spiral Abyss content when you're split into Team A and Team B. So maybe for Team A they'll throw you a bunch of ice enemies, and for Team B maybe it's all fire. It's gonna be a problem if you only have fire or ice heroes. That's why you want elemental diversity. Now, when you first started the game, maybe what we did was to focus on the carry and the sub carry because you want to focus on having a highly synergistic team of 4, right? But you'll soon realize that maybe the sub carry just doesn't perform as well as a DPS carry. For example, Fischl may be one of the more commonly built characters in the game right now because she has a rate up in the previous banner. And even though Fischl may have a very strong DPS potential, but her character design makes her more ideal as a support character. On top of that, ranged carries can only hit single target on auto attacks and you can't control who you are hitting if you're surrounded by multiple enemies. I do have a tier list for characters that have a strong carry potential. You guys can pause the video here to check them out, and hopefully it will help you decide who your 2 DPS carries will be. As free-to-play player, the easiest ones to recommend would be Xiangling and Traveler. Noelle is also good, but most people only consider using her if you have max constellations. Okay, that's team building done. Let's talk about resource management. There are 3 things I want to talk about. 1. Weapon choice. 2. Resin spending. And 3. Resource tracker. So first one, weapon choice. This can get a little bit more complicated for support characters, but to simplify, if you're a DPS and you can get by just using 4-star weapons, ignore the 3-star weapons unless they're still better than the 4-star weapons in late game. So for example, the Debate Club. A max refined Debate Club, it's going to outperform the prototype Amulet all the way until level 70. But the enemies in lower world levels are much easier. If you can get by with a weaker weapon at the start, don't spend any resources on building the 3-star weapons at all. Next, Resin spending. Focus on guaranteed progression. It means getting ascension for weapons, characters and talents before even considering artifact domains. Even fulfilling the Adventurer's Handbook, you don't need to spend any resin on them. Just clear the required domains and you can still progress. The reason for this is because before you hit AR45, artifact farming is highly inefficient. Even after you hit AR45, things that don't have an RNG element, by default, I'll value those that have a lot of RNG involved. But if there's one special tip I have for spending resin, it is when you hit AR36, depending if you want speed or efficiency, spending your fragile resin for a character talent is worth it. The reason is because there's very little difference in the reward spike unlike the other domains. When you go to the highest tier domain for talent, you get like maybe an extra 10% more. So if you want to get to AR40 more quickly, this is something that I did do and recommend doing. Lastly, resource tracker. Now, the common thing that happens at AR40 is you'll experience resource scarcity. You're gonna run out of experience books, enhancement ores, and also the materials dropped by the regular mobs. This means fine-tuning how much you should build your sub-carries and your healer is very important. So focus on your 2 strong carries before slowly building the rest of your team. But anyway, you guys might want to consider going to GenshinCentral.com. What you can do in the website is you can add characters and weapons that you're building, and they'll tell you the items that you need and what days of the week you need to enter the domains. For example, if I don't need to go to any domains on Mondays and Thursdays, it means those are the days I need to kill the elemental world bosses. Another reason why this is useful is also because the monster materials will be listed, and maybe you didn't care so much for enemies that drop sealed scrolls before, but now they become a higher priority. Anyway, it's free, so feel free to check it out anytime, guys. So now that we have learned these tips on how to prepare for AR40, let's take a look at my own account for a real case on how I approach my team building and resource management. When I first rolled for my account, I got Jin for my 5-star. And then I got a bunch of these other 4-star units like Chongyun and Fischl. So I went around looking for like which are the most highly rated characters, right? So I thought, okay, the 2 characters I'll focus on will be Jin and Fischl. And then at the back of my mind, I was only concerned about elemental diversity. So I thought it would be nice to have ice and fire units, so I invested in both Chongyun and Xiangling. Then I got stuck in Spiral Abyss and thought, okay, looks like the best way I can solve the flaw was to invest in Razor. By the time I almost hit AR40, I ended up with many characters at level 70. And I needed to make the proper decision now to focus on 2 DPS carries only. So based on my roster, I thought Razor and Chongyun were the cheapest ones to build. Razor only needed to have Kea as the enabler, and Chongyun only needed the water heroes plus maybe a Sucrose, none of whom I needed to level. Because I have built Xiangling, whenever I see enemies that require me to use a fire unit, I would replace Kea with Xiangling, because if I replace Fischl with Xiangling, Xiangling would really make it difficult for me to control the superconduct buff, because her fire aura tends to persist. So instead of superconduct, it becomes an overloaded team comp. In terms of resource management, I know I've made a lot of mistakes in terms of both characters and weapons. But carrying on, I didn't work on anyone else until I finished leveling both Razor and Chongyun, as well as their weapons respectively. Now following them, I focus on the 2 most important sub-carries for both teams, Fischl and Xingqiu, and that's where we are right now. So with all that done, I feel like AR40 is actually pretty manageable. Even at character level 70 and level 70 weapons, I didn't have any problems dealing with the enemies and bosses. As long as you understand the mechanics of the game, which is supposed to happen before you hit AR40, I think you'll be fine. Mechanics such as knowing which element to deal with what shields, like for example, even a level 1 Barbara can break fire shields faster than a max level Fischl, right? But I did notice the difficulty has gone up a bit. One of the more noticeable difference is the role of a healer in some of the highest tier domains. They become more pronounced. So if you didn't have any proper healer or any proper shield from Geo, you could get wiped. Also, if you play with people that haven't really built their characters properly, you may fail the DPS check. So as you can see guys, I personally have made investment mistakes before, but as long as your carries are built up, I mean there are ways to fix the mistakes, right? Move on from your mistakes and go back to enjoying the game as per normal. In the future, I'll be making a video to help you guys rate your characters and how to build a synergistic team. Hopefully that will help you guys from needlessly squandering your resources. That's all for me. As usual, if you find this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more Genshin Impact content. Have a great one guys.